3 weeks ago, I was on a remote island in the South Pacific in a country that is one of the most underdeveloped, indigenous, and remote places on the entire planet. A place called Vanuatu. I was there with my 11-year-old son, Elijah, some of our elders, Jake Hewer, Travis Stewart, and his son, Jackson, and our leader was Dr. David Corson. We had the long trip down there to go and see about the 12 orchard churches that are scattered across the island. And on the day I'm going to talk about, I found myself walking toward a local house, and what was inside was someone that I was very anxious to meet. His name is Pastor James Nicholson, and over the past 5 years, he and I had forged a friendship. We had messaged back and forth. When he'd come into town and get some Wi-Fi, we would FaceTime and discuss the churches and what God's doing there in Vanuatu, in his life and his churches. He would go out into the remote jungle villages, the bush they call it, and spread the gospel to any who would listen. There's no roads to these places. There's no power. There's no running water. There's nothing. James was nothing that you would recognize as your home. But James was born and he was raised on these islands, and his love for Jesus and his love for the local Nevans, the native Vanuatuans, it fueled him on many trips over very difficult terrain, flooded rivers and boat journeys that were days long. The very week we were there, people had died in a flooded river crossing, one that James had gone across many times on his travels to reach the unreachable, the marginalized. And through his hard work, entire villages had come to know and trust Jesus. Churches had formed out in the middle of the bush where they were learning to love God and love people, what that meant. And he would send me photos of himself, and he would say, I'm going out to see some of our churches, and he would send me photos of himself handing out machetes and Bibles. And he would baptize people. He was a courageous man who had done more for spreading Jesus to his people than I will ever do for mine. He's a hero of mine. But the jungle and the bush had taken its toll on James's body. And as I stepped onto the muddy area leading up to his house, I was anxious to meet him. This would be my first time seeing him face to face. But unfortunately, James would not see me. The illness had spread through his body quickly, and he could no longer walk, and he could no longer see. We passed through a door into this dimly lit area, and as my eyes adjusted, I saw a mat over here where the family slept. And we kept moving through. There's no lights. There's nowhere to plug in a light. And in the back room was my friend, Pastor James. And I was confronted in that room by sights and smells that my American senses and experience have no category for. It was overwhelming at first. But there he was. And we met and we hugged, and he called me something that nobody else gets to call me. He said, Danny, it's so good to finally meet you. And we gathered there in James's room, and I knelt there on the hard floor as he talked and spoke to us, and he told us stories. And he talked about his time out there building the churches, and he talked about his faith even now, and he talked about his illness. And when he began to speak about the last day when his eyesight failed, he just wept. And I wept with my friend. He had homemade crutches that his son had fashioned for him, but he still spoke longingly of his days of crossing the rivers, and he wanted one more trip, one more boat trip, one more trip into the bush, one more preaching journey. And we spoke for I don't know how long. Time stood still. It truly was holy ground. It was a sacred space. And that was James and I's first time meeting face to face, and we both knew it would be our last here in this life. I left James's house shaken and challenged. So challenged, and on Friday night, driving to the Good Friday service, I felt God asked me to jettison my sermon that I had prepared today. The one that I had worked on, it was historical and it had all the things, and to do something new. And so I'm trusting that God has something for you today in this. I was challenged there in James's room and by his life because I knew we would all be in this room. Whether you're here or whether you're listening live or listening later in the week, I knew we would be here talking about Easter. So what does Pastor James Nicholson and the Nevan and the jungles on an island far away have to do with Easter or with you? What is Jesus, a man 2,000 years ago? And let's just get to it. I know you've probably been to an Easter message. Like, there's no spoilers I'm going to give you. Like, he rose again. You've heard, you know the story. You know that he died on the cross. He was in the tomb. He rose again. And so and you've heard the story before, most likely. So why are we here then? Why are you here? And what does Jesus want for you today? Did you ever stop to consider what does Jesus want for you today? Like, you might be here because someone dragged you. Like, preacher, I'm just trying to date this girl, and this is what she does on Easter. So here I am. But did you ever stop to consider that God has an appointment for you today? See, my prayer for you is that you wouldn't just come and hear a great band and a sermon and meet some people, but that you would have an encounter with the almighty God of the universe who wants to say some things to your heart today, and you would leave this place differently. And so I just want to talk without any pretense. Let's just get down to it, and I want to ask you a question. What does Christianity offer you? What does Christianity offer you? Honestly. And for some of you who are new to this, or you may have moved past it, and no, that's what I did when I was a kid, and I'm back. Like, what does Christianity truly offer? And we've come as a nation and a culture to believe a few things, that it offers eternal life. Like, someday I'll have heaven, and also it offers rules. I have a good friend who finally just told me point blank, he said, man, I like that Jesus guy, and you're cool, but I don't know if I can do all the rules, man. I don't know if I can do all that churchy rule stuff. And that's kind of Christianity in a cultural nutshell. To be a Christian is to believe in Jesus so you get heaven someday, but until then, you got rules today. We've come to believe that to follow Jesus, we must become religious. Act a certain way, perhaps vote a certain way now, or speak a certain way. And the hope of our cultural churchianity seems to be that we conform. When what Jesus seems to ask us is to transform, not conform. This isn't a new thought. Did you know in Jesus' time, there were thousands upon thousands of rules they had to follow to be a good person? The Old Testament came loaded with 613 commandments, laws. But just like us, they put on thousands of laws on top of it. There are books written about all the many minutia and laws that they would put on top of God's law. And you had to follow all of them. And we can't look down on that because we do that. Listen, you can't go to church with your hat on. I was in the bathroom, and I met this new guy out front, and he was walking in with his family, and he didn't know me, I didn't know him, and right before I was going to preach, I saw him in the bathroom, and he's in there, and he takes his hat off and puts it on the mirror, or on the counter, he looks in the mirror and goes, gets some water, and he starts slicking his hair, and I go, hey man, you can wear your hat in there. And he goes, are you sure? Because my wife wants me to do my hair. I was like, hey, you can wear your hat. The preacher, he's preached in a hat before, and he goes, and I just know he walked back in there, and she's like, what about your, and he goes, some guy in the bathroom told me I could wear a hat. And I get up there, and he's like, that's the guy. Hey, what the heck? There he is. Hello, sir. And he's wearing his hat. Yes. We have our own rules, like don't run in the sanctuary. Or call it a sanctuary. This place is sacred. This converted gym is holy ground. Don't drink, smoke, or chew, or go out with girls that do. Like, we have religious rules. Now and back then, it seems that following rules is like the intrinsic part of what it means to have religious goodness. And but here's what's crazy. When Jesus came on the scene, he didn't do very well with that. You know, he's the Son of God. He left the throne of heaven. And why did he do that? To come to earth and show us what it looks like to live the way God intended. And he broke rules. Now, he didn't sin, but he broke their religious rules. What else did he do? Well, I mean, he healed on the Sabbath. Can you believe it? He did all these things that we're not supposed to do. He's showing us how to live if we're following him. Jesus came and lived a life to show us a few things, and it has everything to do with Easter this morning. And it has everything to do with what Pastor James showed me there in that dim room. That Jesus actually told us why he came. And so this Easter, I want to talk to you about something different. He died, he was in the grave, he rose again, but what now? Like what for us now? And Jesus actually talks about this in John 10:10. He says, I have come to give you life, and life to the full. He didn't say I came to give you rules now, and if you do that good enough, heaven then. No, he said I came to give you life, full life, now, presently, here. So the question is, I mean, like you have to ask this, right? If Jesus says he's going to give you a full life, well, what is a full life according to him? What would that look like? Because we have our preconceived ideas of what that religious life would look like. But what is Jesus? What would it look like? What does he offer? What is the actual invitation of Easter that Jesus rose again to offer us something? What does it really mean to experience and live a life, and life to the full? Well, there's three things I want to talk about that Jesus, by his resurrection, offers us for life for the full. The first one is this: forgiveness in my past. For there to be life and life to the full, there has to be forgiveness of my past. And here's why: because Jesus created us, he designed us, and he knows the effect of our sin. He knows the effect of when we wander and choose selfishness, and he knows those things. And what is it? It's shame. That's the result of sin and abuse and evil and wandering. There's shame. And shame is the most toxic substance on the planet for the human soul. Shame is what leads to rage. Shame nurtures our insecurity. Shame always hides from the light. Shame grows in secret. Shame is what drives us to addiction. Shame is dysfunction in action. Jesus knew that shame would have a grip on our life. And the glory of Easter isn't just eternal life someday and rules today. Jesus came and gave us life to the full, and that started with the death and the defeat of shame. And for some of us, you may have come into this place and you felt some shame. I haven't been back in church for a long time. Or you had that. I remember, my dad was a preacher. I'd sit there in church and I would have this thought: what if everybody in here knew what I did? And I couldn't even sing. I just felt so shameful. And so maybe you've been in here, you've been fighting the shame, like, oh man, I'm in here sweating. I'm going to burst into flame any second. You're doing good. Doing great. Shame. The accusations. If people only knew. Look at you. Look at this. Shame is the result in Jesus. Easter came. Jesus died and rose again so that shame doesn't get to tell you who you are anymore. Because shame in our past, it haunts us. And for some of us, our past, it has hooks in us. Which means for many, our past reaches forward and makes decisions for us in our present. The result of that is that our past is actually deciding our future. Shame in our past affecting our present and deciding our future. Jesus came to break that shame no longer defines us. To have a life and life to the full like he promised, we have to be able to walk through life with freedom from the past and shame. And Jesus breaks the hold of shame upon our lives by breaking the stronghold that it has on our present. Listen to these verses. This is one of the best sinners in the Bible. Like, the Bible is full of incredible sinners. You should read this. It's like a Jerry Springer show sometimes in here. Like, there are some people in here like, whoa, I would fit right in. And that's the point. But one of them named Paul, he goes on a whole chapter of just how he wants to do good, but he's doing bad, and he can't avoid sin, and sin's getting him. And he ends with this. He says, oh, what a miserable person I am. Who will free me from this life that's dominated by sin and death? Do you see the shame there? What a miserable person. How many accusations do you hear in your life? All the things you've done. All the things you're doing. What a miserable person I am. Who will save me from this? And I always wonder if Paul wrote that and then stepped back, oh. And how long did he leave his pen there and maybe perhaps just weep? Who's going to save me? I'm a miserable person. And then inspired by God's Spirit, he picks the pen back up and he says, thank God. The The answer is in Jesus. Life to the full must come with freedom from our past. Paul continues to write. The next sentence says this. He goes, because of this, because of Jesus, there's no condemnation for those who belong to Jesus. No condemnation means no shame. He says, and because you belong to Jesus, the power of life-giving Spirit has freed you. You see, the offer of Easter is forgiveness in my past. The glory of Easter is that Jesus died and rose again to separate you from the shame that's been trying to define you your whole life. And you've listened to it because the voice sounds an awful lot like yours. The second thing Jesus offers us at Easter isn't just forgiveness in my past, it's peace in my present. Because it's not just heaven someday and forgiveness then, there's got to be something now. And it's peace in my present, in your present. There's something for you today. Peace, like true, authentic peace. And peace has come, I don't know if you know this, peace has become a billion-dollar industry in our culture. If you start to open your eyes around you and look at the commercials and the marketing and what they're actually trying to sell you, they're selling you peace of mind and peace of heart. The Pursuit of Peace has written more pages and more self-help books than any other topic. We have essential oils promoting peace. We have retreats and classes promising peace. We have mindfulness that says we're getting peace, and meditation and holistic healing and herbal therapy, aromatherapy, not to mention the pharmaceutical industry. Pills to provide prescribed peace. There's more prescriptions for peace than ever before. But what do we see in our culture and what are we experiencing? Do we have more peace? No, we have less than ever. Yet we have more books and more pills and more practices and we have everything except for the one thing, the peace. We are juiced to the gills with pills and practices. And we can't seem to hold it. And here's the short and quick truth about peace. We've come to believe that peace is available when everything around me is settled and balanced and peaceful. Like when things at work settle down, then, like when dysfunction is signed, like when the diagnosis, divorce, and dysfunction is like signed and settled, then I'll have peace. When that relationship is resolved, when my toes are up on that Instagram post, then I'll have peace. Which just proves the point. We get little photos, little moments, but it's fleeting. We are one phone call. We are one thought. You can be driving down the interstate and you have one thought out of nowhere that robs you of your peace. Our peace is so fragile and so fleeting. It's almost like this life. This is groundbreaking. It's almost like this life wasn't designed to give us peace. Like the circumstances, the things that happen. And Jesus knew this. He said this in John 16:33. In this life you will have trouble. Man, I wish he'd finished that sentence differently. Like in a lot of places, they say in this life you'll have riches or health, and they promise all these things. But Jesus said trouble. We can't get around it. The word here for trouble is tarazo, and it means to steal your calmness. It means to have distress and anxiety. How can Jesus say, in this life you'll have trouble, and I came to give you life and life to the full? Those two things don't seem to go together too well. I'm going to have life to the full and trouble? Come on. How can he say these? Because when Jesus comes, what he came to give us was a peace that no pill, no book, no retreat, no vacation, no divorce, no new relationship, no raise, no resolution will ever be able to offer you. You see, they promise peace when things are peaceful. And Jesus came to give you peace when things are chaotic around you. Jesus did not come to keep you from pain and from storms. He came to give you peace in the pain and in the storm. And some of you, if we're really honest right now, you're in this place and you are in it. You are in over your head. And you know what it means to be in pain and storm and just need some peace. There in Vanuatu, I brought my 11-year-old son Elijah with me. It was a trip that was going to bond he and I together and grow his character. And I was watching him and his grit and resilience and positivity just blossom. It was on one of these days, one of our elders, Travis, was teaching to some leaders there, and I went up to talk to Travis when I heard my name behind me called, and I turned around, and it was one of Elijah's new friends named Jeremy, and he goes, come here quick, and I go back, and I see my son come around the corner, and as I go back over there to him, I'm walking toward him, I see my son is just covered in mud, head to toe, which is not a big deal. I mean, he hardly wore a shirt the whole time there anyway, and mud is everywhere. He's covered in mud, and as I walk forward, like shaking my head, I get closer, and I see it's not mud. It's not what you're thinking either. It's blood. And it's everywhere. And it's growing. As I watch, it's growing on his shirt. And I get to him and I start to look around him, and it's coming down. It's on his head. I turn him around and I see, and I open, and there is this gaping head wound. I immediately tell him to take off his shirt, and I put it on the back of his head. I need a doctor now. I don't even know what I'm asking for. We're on the island after the island after the island. We're not even on the big island with the big medical. I don't know what's available to me, but I need a doctor now. And I get Travis, and I get one of my new friends, Paul, there, and we start walking across the grounds. And Elijah, at this point, he looks down and he sees he is just covered, painted red. He asked the question, Daddy, is this my blood? Yes, buddy, it is. And of course, he is 6,000 miles away from everything he knows. And the fear begins to rise up in him. I just hold him, we get in the car, and the entire trip, all I'm doing is saying, I'm with you, my son. I'm here. I'm going to be with you. It's going to be okay. He would calm down. He would look back down and see the blood pooling in his navel, and he would start crying again. I go, my son, I'm with you. I'm right here. I'm not leaving. It's going to be okay. It's okay, buddy. It's okay. And the whole trip, I just whispered and whispered to my son, Daddy's here. Daddy's here. I'm with you. I'm not leaving. My words to my son through that terrifying experience, a world away, were just a small picture of what many of us experience and what I was experiencing. I had fear. I had it in my heart. And I'm hearing my Heavenly Father whisper to me, I'm with you, my son. I'm right here. I'm with you. As I heard my Father speak to my heart. And for some of you here today, you are in situations where you have panic. More than anyone would know what you're dealing with. Places where you just need God to come through, where things are breaking or broken. And you need to hear God say, my daughter, I'm with you. I love you. I'm right here with you. My son, I see you. I love you. I'm right here with you. You see, we have these moments, and we need to know we have a Father in heaven who holds us, who sees us, who loves us, and who speaks life and peace into us even when life is breaking apart. You see, here's what he promises, that heaven can hold us when hell breaks loose around us. My son got the help he needed. It was much different than anything we'd experienced there in America. But he got a great story and some stitches. It's the first you've ever heard the whole story. We had an agreement when we were down there. I wouldn't, and she knows, obviously she knows, but I told her, she said, don't tell me anything that's going to worry me if it's going to resolve. And so she didn't know till Denver that he had quite an experience, but he is good. But he did give me permission to share this story, but he said, only if I say one thing at the end. Daddy, tell them not to talk to me about it. I don't want to answer questions about it. So, are we good? We're good. But what about when it's not going to be okay? Like, it's a good story now because he's here, he's good. But what about when it's not good? Like, I've been through divorce. I've prayed the prayers that it would be saved, and it didn't. I've seen things go catastrophic when I thought God would come through. And what about you? You have some places where You needed God to come through, and it didn't turn out okay, did it? What do we do when it's not the resolution we want? Well, back to that darkened room there with Pastor James, as I sat there with this man of God on that sacred, holy ground in that dim room, and through our tears and our discussion, we finally prayed and we're saying our goodbyes. It was an honest time between brothers of faith. We were raised a world apart, but we had so much in common, and Dr. David was there. Dr. David led him to Jesus as a young man under a coconut tree. They'd been friends for James his whole life almost. And David held James's face and said, James, we won't see you again on this earth. But we are not without hope, are we? And James, with a smile, said, yes. And he gripped us tighter. James, this man, as he talked about his life, as I watched him in that moment, there was something sacred about his words and his demeanor and his smile there. James had peace that surpassed understanding. This man had walked into villages and had magic men with machetes threaten his life and to bury him if he came forward, and he stood there with peace. James had walked for days through wet jungle and slept on the ground with no questions of raises or recreational vehicles with peace. He had given his life to this. He had walked and lived with peace that didn't make sense, and he was now staring at the end of his life with a peace that surpassed understanding. And the glory of Easter is life to the full that offers peace in the present, regardless of whether it's going to go the way we want it to. Jesus got closer to the cross and a painful death. Listen to what Jesus said about peace. John 14:27. Jesus says this. He says it to you. I'm leaving you with a gift. The gift is peace of mind and peace of heart. And the peace I give, the world can't give. The world can't produce the peace that Jesus gives. And what does he finish with? So don't be troubled. I'm giving you peace of mind and heart that the world can't give. Don't be troubled. And what word does Jesus use for trouble here? It's the same word, terrazo. The same word he used earlier. What Jesus says is, in this life you'll have trouble. But don't be troubled, because I'm going to give you peace. In this life you'll have terrazo, but don't be terrazo. I'm going to give you something. Listen, in this life you'll have stress, but you don't have to be distressed. It's the same word. This is the peace. The peace of this world is external, but the peace of God is internal. And Jesus is saying, my heaven will hold you tight inside, even though hell break loose around you. Jesus said, I came to give you life and life to the full. And it must mean that we have a life of peace, even in the chaos. That's an offer of Easter. So Easter gives us forgiveness in our past, peace in our present. And the third one is this: hope in our future. To have a life and life to the full, we must have hope. And not just eternal hope, oh, someday. We've got to have hope now, today. That's got to be something that he offers us as hope for this. And Jesus said, I've come to give you hope, not just for someday, but today. Jesus died on a cross. He was in the grave. When he walked out of that tomb on Sunday morning, do you know what resurrected with Jesus? Do you know what walked out of the tomb with him? Hope, like real hope. Hope walked out of that grave. Hope that God still loves you, that he still pursues you, that he has a plan for you. Hope that your past is forgiven. Hope that your shame is broken. Hope that your addiction won't get the last word in your life. Hope that your insecurity doesn't ruin you, your anxiety doesn't own you. Hope that the depression doesn't destroy you. Hope that the diagnosis and divorce doesn't define your life. Hope that your loneliness doesn't label you. Hope, true hope for now, like your life. It's not life to the full unless there's hope for you. Easter gives us hope, not just for someday, but today. And that's the invitation of Jesus. That's the invitation. Forgiveness of your past. And I know you're thinking, even that? Yes, even that. You can't out-sin God's love. He went to the cross to show you. Forgiveness of your past, peace in your present, and hope in your future. That's the offer of God. And it's all available because of Easter. And here's something, I want to give you something to declare as I end this. Here's something to declare. Romans 10:9. If you openly declare that Jesus is Lord and believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, you will be saved. If you declare and believe that he is Lord, that he raised from the dead, you will be saved. This offer is a free gift of God. There is no money given to a preacher needed. Never believe that. Never. Never believe you have to pay penance. Jesus paid all the penance. He did all the work that we don't have to do it. We just declare that Jesus is Lord and believe in our heart, and he does the work for us. Forgiveness in your past, peace in your present, and hope in your future. If you've never prayed to receive Jesus in this way, I'm going to pray this prayer to declare openly with our mouth and believe in our heart. And you can pray with me, and you can step into this salvation. You can step into this journey of forgiveness in your past, peace in your present, and hope in your future. And here's the other thing. Some of you may have grown up in church and been involved in this stuff, and you have wandered far. And you're like, man, I took the scenic route back to church. But here's the deal. Some of you need to pray this prayer again as a recommitment. I still believe, and I'll place my faith in you, Jesus. So will you pray with me? Will you declare this with me? Let's pray together. God, I believe in Jesus, that you raised him from the dead. Jesus, I declare you my Lord and Savior. I give you my past. I give you my life. Thank you that you died and rose again. Give me life and life to the full. Holy Spirit, fill me. In Jesus' name, amen. As we go into this song, I think this is a song worth standing for. I think that what Jesus did on Easter is worth standing for and worth worshiping. So will you stand with me as we sing about Jesus who gave his life to rise again?